Ladies and gentlemen, it's 6 o'clock. We'll call our meeting to order. We appreciate everybody being here tonight. And right now, I am going to introduce Tamara Kersey. She's a manager at Blue Cross and Blue Shield, assistant pastor at Wayman's Chapel, and a Graham resident for over 14 years. She's going to have an invocation. Tamara, if you would.
Before the invocation, can I do the introduction?
No, tell us what you're doing.
So my name is Tamara Kersey. I want to talk a little bit about the history of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Because it is Black History Month, I feel like it's very important that we do highlight some of the history, not just Black history, but local history. So a little bit about myself. I am a Graham resident. I'm bivocational. So I work at Blue Cross Blue Shield as a manager, and I have formerly pastored Maxwell Chapel AME, which was out in the Saxapaw area. I'm now an assistant pastor at historic Wayman Chapel, which is right down the road on Main Street. The African Methodist Episcopal Church was founded over 200 years ago. It was founded because of discrimination. The Black people in the congregation felt like they could not worship freely because when they were praying, they were pulled from their knees and told, you need to go back to your section. So the founders walked out of St. George Methodist Episcopal Church back in 1800 and something. It's 204 years old. And they founded the African Methodist Episcopal Church. There are over 2.5 million members of the AME Church from North America, South America, India, and Africa. So it is a global denomination. It is for all people. Despite the name, it is truly a church meant for civil rights, social action, and living out the gospel in ways to uplift all of God's people. The mission is also founded in social justice. So a lot of the work that we do is based on this kind of work. I do want to acknowledge Mayor Jerry Peterman. Thank you for the invitation, the city council members, and to the City of Graham staff. Some of the work that we have done to connect Mayor Peterman and I, we had our 4th annual Freedom Talks, which is a panel highlighting members of the community who are either African American first, who are working in civic engagement, education. Last year we had Chief Smythe from a police enforcement perspective, and it highlights Black history, and it talks about civil rights from a historical perspective, bringing it forward of how we can progress and continue social change in current modern day times. So this annual Freedom Talks in February, we commemorated 150 years of Wyatt Outlaw, who was hung in the town square, the first African-American commissioner for Alamance County here in Graham. Mayor Peterman was able to meet a descendant, his great-great-grandson, and deliver a presentation commemorating that death and honoring the work that Wyatt Outlaw did in our community. So that was on last Sunday at the Paramount. We do that event every year with panelists commemorating again and highlighting some of the work of Black history and those who are first in African American history. We also have a social action commission where we hosted a Meet the Candidate Forum. So the North Carolina state legislative offices, those candidates who are running, they met at Wayman Chapel, and we hosted a panel for all of those candidates. It was a nonpartisan candidate forum. And we also hosted the County Commissioner Forum at Johnson Chapel, which is an AME church in Mebane. So we are tightly connected to our community. We are supportive of civil rights and social change, and we are also ministering to those people that have issues that we would like to uplift from a spiritual, emotional, social, and physical development so we can empower people according to God's word. So that's a little bit about the work that we do. And again, thanks to Mayor Peterman. And now I'd like us to have our invocation. So if you could bow in a moment of silence and honor for the Lord. God, our Father, Christ, our Redeemer, Holy Spirit, our Comforter, humankind, our family. Lord, we come this evening as your servants working on behalf of the citizens of Graham. This work requires wisdom, compassion, and love. So grant us your spirit, your guidance, and direction, that the work done here today will enhance the well-being of all of your people. Grant us your gifts of grace and stewardship as we care for your people and the land that you've provided for us to care for. We ask that in this work, that you, O Lord, will replace our indifference with conviction and our apathy with tenacity. In the name of the one who is our great creator and master architect, the one and only true God. Amen.
Thank you, Tamara. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are the Graham City Council. We appreciate everybody being here. The first thing we're going to do is some good stuff. We're going to pat some people on the back. So the first one I'm going to read is proclamation of commendation and appreciation to Alan Maness for his service to the city of Graham. Whereas Alan Maness diligently served the city of Graham from January 3rd, 1990 until January 31st, 2020. Whereas Alan retired as fire captain on January 31st, 2020 with over 30 years of service. Whereas his dedication and determination resulted in the advancement from the Water and Sewer Distribution Department, where he held the position of Maintenance Worker 1 and Maintenance Worker 2, to the Fire Department, where he held the positions of Equipment Operator, Inspector, Captain, and Interim Chief. Whereas Alan has proven to be a repository of institutional knowledge and wisdom, providing aid and assistance to those of us fortunate enough to work alongside him, always ready to give sound advice grounded in his keen insights. Whereas it is the desire of the city of Graham to extend the deepest appreciation to Alan for his excellent time and service he has afforded the citizens of Graham and his fellow employees. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Graham that Alan be commended for his outstanding public service to the City of Graham. Be it further resolved that an expression of appreciation be extended to Mr. Maness in the form of this proclamation and commendation of appreciation. And this proclamation become a part of the official records of the City of Graham for all time, and the original thereof be presented to him in person this 11th day of February 2020. Alan, would you and your family come down? And the firemen, y'all come down too. Congratulations.
Thanks, sir.
I
told you, don't let it grow out.
He's been shaving all his life and now he's quit. Y'all turn around that time, get your picture.
Where's that? Yeah, hide right up there.
Come around here with us. And Mary wants your picture also.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
All right, next we have a proclamation and commendation of appreciation to Jimmy Aiken for his service to the city of Graham. Whereas Jimmy Aiken diligently served the city of Graham from September the 6th, 1994 until January 31st, 2020. Jimmy retired as water plant superintendent on January 31st, 2020 with over 25 years of service. Whereas his dedication and determination resulted in advancement from water plant operator 1 to water plant operator 2 to water plant operator 3 and ultimately water plant superintendent. Whereas Jimmy has proven to be a repository of institutional knowledge and wisdom, providing aid and assistance to those who are fortunate enough to work alongside him, always ready to give sound advice grounded in his keen insights. Whereas it is the desire of the City of Council to extend the deepest appreciation to Jimmy for his excellent time and service he has afforded the citizens of Graham and his fellow employees. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Graham that Jimmy be commended for his outstanding public service to the City of Graham. Be it further resolved that an expression of appreciation be extended to Mr. Jimmy Aiken in the form of this proclamation of commendation and appreciation. And this proclamation become a part of the official records of the city of Graham for all time. And the original therefore be presented to him in person this 11th day of February 2020. Jimmy and the guys back there, y'all want to come up? Jimmy Aikens, you ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. All right, next we have our consent agenda. A is approved minutes January 13th. B, approved minutes January 14th. C, approved the tax releases and refunds. D, approved tax collectors mid-year report. E, approve amendments to the City of Graham traffic schedule. F, approve a street closure by Brian Fawcett. G, approve the street closure again by Brian Fawcett. H, a street closure by Brian Fawcett. I, a street closure request by Together Community Event. And J, approve the street closure request by Cultural Meal. Does anybody want to pull anything off the consent agenda?
F, G, H, I, J.
Anybody else? Then I need a motion to approve A, B, C, and D, and E of the consent agenda.
So moved.
All in favor say aye. All opposed likewise. I'll go to Jennifer on F, please.
So I think we had talked about this kind of informally before. Some of the businesses in the downtown have relayed to me personally and to, I think, other council members about their frustration of not sometimes knowing about the events. I think the businesses support these events and like the events, but I think they've expressed concern about not knowing when the streets are going to close. And so I just wanted us to talk about the possibility of when we do have a street closure, notifying those business owners and getting their input. I don't know that, and maybe Brian can speak to this, at least on his, but I don't know if is it the Cultural Mill and the other private venue, private event or a coordinator, if they have notified the businesses and gotten their input on that they're okay with the street closures.
All right.
We're talking about 45 potential closings.
Yes.
It's a lot. So that affects their business, and I just think they need to be notified ahead of time.
I agree with you. Let's do that. Brian, would you take care of that for us, please, on all of these? Is there anything on the rest of them? One.
It's like, I guess one of the concerns that was relayed to me from a business is that why are we closing the street at 9 a.m. when the event doesn't start until 6? Why are we closing the street? And I said, well, I understand. They said, well, setup is not, they want to work with the event coordinator, of course, but they just feel like, the street shouldn't be shut down the entire day, affecting their business. And I just want us as a city and as event coordinators to try to work with the businesses to try to either expedite or things that are taking longer. Like I think in Slice of Summer, the only thing that was really taking a lot of time was a specific tent, and the repositioning of that tent made it so that the streets could stay open a lot longer. And, I think anything closing at 4 is fine because most people close at 5 anyways, but closing at 9 a.m. and not being able to get to those businesses, especially furniture stores and things like that, where people need to be able to load and unload, it's an inconvenience for the business.
Okay. Anybody else want to add into this thing? And I'll charge Brian with doing a minimum setup time if we can. We'll ask for a minimum setup set up. Once we arrive at that time, we'll announce it to the business owners.
Mayor,
Okay.
just for information, I believe they have amended some of the attractions this year so that they could limit the closure time. Is that correct, Brian?
I know it was a problem on a couple of them last year.
So Slice of Summer, that starts at what time?
1 p.m. With the closures at 1 p.m.
Yeah, the closure starts for Slice of Summer, I believe.
1 p.m.
But when does the event start?
At 1. The event is at 6. No, Slice is at 4 that afternoon. I think that's a 4 to 8 time frame.
Now, I don't know if this is possible. Well, what I was hearing from the business owners is that if the event's going to start at 6, is 2 hours not enough time for you to get set up?
No. We have lots of hose to run down the street to service
Okay.
those water rides. So 2 hours is a really, really tight window to get that in. So I would say, no, if there's an issue, then we would need to address it right then and there. It's got to be some setup time and prep time to troubleshoot things.
What about Pumpkin Bash that starts at 6, I think, and they were saying, because I think when they talked to the coordinator, they said that they maybe 4, but the only thing that was taking time was that big tent.
No, the only thing for, well, the tent does take some time, yes, to set up, but the main thing that took the most time for the for the Pumpkin Bash event was the giant slide that was set up on East Elm Street. And for various reasons, we've taken that out of the, at least out of that location. So the time frame for Pumpkin Bash this year is 2 o'clock. So that's a significant change from years past.
Not 9 a.m.
Correct. There's no 9 a.m. anywhere in this for Pumpkin Bash or Slice of Summer.
So it takes 4 hours to set up the blow-up rides?
For all that we have, yes. And to get all the other vendors down there and set up in a safe enough time so we don't have folks come in. We experience general public getting to our events at least 30 minutes ahead of time. So yes, to get everything secured where we don't have traffic coming around Court Square when we have the public arriving early to our events, yes, it takes that long.
And then the, have you notified any of these businesses of these potential street closures?
As far as I know, Kristen has notified all of them. I can double check with her, but again, this is less restrictive than we have been in the past. So I will make that definitely well known to all the businesses down there as the mayor asked.
Well, I get what you're saying. I support these events a lot. I appreciate it a lot. I just think telling them after the fact, after you've already closed the road, is a little bit like,
He's already said he'd get in touch with them early as we possibly can.
I know, but what if they want it later? I mean, that's my thing. It's like, is there no way to, like, are you saying that this is like your drop dead time?
Pretty close to it,
There's
yeah.
no negotiation
We've
with the business owners?
correct. We've asked our vendors. So if we start lessening the attractions that we have at the event, then that's a possibility that we shorten the amount of time that we close the streets. But I think they've been pretty popular as they have been presented. So I would hate to lessen what we have.
I think they're great. I think they're wonderful. Please don't take this as I just want to, if we can curb any, I guess, frustration from the business owners. It's 10 a.m. It's completely dead because all the streets are closed and nothing's happening.
I think he's
That's where
done
they
that.
got
The
frustrated.
numbers are much better.
1 o'clock and 2 o'clock are the earliest closures for these two events.
The numbers are much better than they have been in the past. Any other questions for Brian while he's here? Yes, sir.
Tom Boney with the Alamance News in the 100 block of West Elm Street. And I would have to say, unless I've missed it in the mail, we've received no notification about any of these closures.
Right.
And we were
Gotta-
affected by them.
There was no reason to notify you until we closed the streets.
Well, I think the point,
That's my
as
point.
I understood Council Member Talley's point, which is what I would certainly hope for, is that the businesses, including mine, would be notified ahead of time so that if I had an objection, I would be able to raise it before the council commits to closing the streets, or the hour at which it commits to closing the streets.
We've limited way
I
down.
understand that, and I appreciate that. But I think the point I thought she was making, that certainly one I agree with, is that the businesses be notified. I would think they should be notified before the request is made, and at least to the best of my knowledge, we have not been so notified.
Well, these are in the middle of the summer, so we got plenty of time to notify you.
But Mayor, the point I'm trying to emphasize is,
There's
We
no
need to
point to
have
be made.
notified.
We've done everything we did. These are historic events that you know are coming. Every one of them except one, I believe, two are new events. We will notify you next week.
but Mayor, I think the procedural issue is one in which the businesses should be notified before the council considers the street closures. That was part of what my understanding was of Councilmember Talley's point.
Hold
It's
on,
certainly the
Brown.
part I would want to emphasize.
I just think that businesses aren't offended when you say, hey, we're wanting to do this and involve them in it, and they're okay with it. Then they can't come back and say, I didn't know this was happening. I know when we put on an event, we go literally door to door and ask every business, is this okay? We're closing at this time. Is this going to be okay with you? So that's all I'm trying to avoid the frustration. I don't know if Paul Krotz is here today, but I mean, that we had people going in his business telling people to move their cars and leave. And I just, we want to work with businesses downtown. We don't want to frustrate them. You see what I'm,
Of
my
course, yeah.
point is
Is
from a good place, I promise.
we have no issue with being more proactive than we have been in the past. And we can start that. We will send out letters immediately for this year, and in the future, we will send out letters to all of the businesses before we get to this point. So I can make that assurance to the council. And yes, we've addressed plenty of issues with businesses in the past and tried to accommodate where possible. But for events the size of these events, there are some accommodations that can't always be made. So we're doing our best to find a balance between a good public event and also enhancing business downtown.
Okay, anything else to speak of on these? F, G, H, I, and J. And it's all right, since you pulled them, it's all right to bundle them all together and vote on them one time.
Yeah, I just have one last question. On the street closures, when you're doing certain sections, one of the other concerns that a business owner had was they're not doing anything on my section. Why can't my section stay closed? And I get that you wrote this for like the whole thing, but like if you have certain, like on Tom Boney's street, for instance, on West Elm, that doesn't have, if you close that and you leave the circle open and then close the circle like at a later time, that seemed like that worked better. And I know we tried that on a different event and that worked better. And then like on East Elm, that has a lot of retail and like restaurants and stuff on it. Obviously that's my side, so I know more about that, but that leaving that for later seems like that makes sense. But down Main Street, there's more retail. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah,
Or?
we always try to block parking places when they become available. We don't completely clear the streets at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. We don't come through
Okay.
with a bullhorn saying, you got to move your car right now. We block the parking places that we can, and the inflatables company comes and sets up their inflatables where they can. We have always tried to leave the streets open as long as we possibly could, the circle especially, so traffic can still move in and out of downtown. So we do the best that we can to limit the distractions and whatever happens downtown on a normal daily basis. We do our best to limit.
So even though it says maybe 2, you might actually have a section of this still open to 4.
I wouldn't say 4,
Well,
but
I mean, if there's nothing, like if it's,
we will have, depending on when the attractions company gets into town is when we start closing a street. So if they roll in at 1:30 for a 2 o'clock closure, we're going to start closing. We'll pick West Elm at 2 o'clock. They'll go to there, and then we may transfer over to East Elm whenever they're ready. We may have already started blocking parking spaces as we can, in those areas, North, South Main, East, and West Elm, as they become available. So then those attractions can be set up as soon as they can. I don't know the exact number of attractions that we have for these events, but it's in the teens. And then we add in all sorts of community attractions and organizations coming down to set up as well. Food trucks, that sort of thing. Other businesses bringing things out into the parking lots. It's a lot of coordination for a small block of time. So we do the best that we can not to completely bog down the courthouse square, but eventually there's going to be a drop dead time that we've got to close it all down.
Okay. All right, then I need a motion to approve F of the consent agenda.
So move.
I need a second. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I need a motion to approve G of the consent agenda.
So move.
Thank you, ma'am. I need a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Need a motion to approve H of the consent agenda.
I'll make
So
that
moved.
motion.
Thank you all. I need a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to approve I of the consent agenda.
Make the motion.
Thank you, sir. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you all. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I need a motion to approve J of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, sir. I need a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, I think I got them all, didn't I? Brian, thank you. I appreciate it. If we'll take care of that, I think we'll help it out a lot. Next, we go to old business, utility payment policy discussion. I think, Jennifer, you brought this up, and do you want to elaborate on that?
So when I was running for office to be on the council, a resident brought to my attention that from the last time I was on the council, a policy had been created, I guess, that allowed them, because I know it wasn't during my tenure on the council, but that a policy had been created that back charged that resident. Their water meter had been, the relay on the water meter was inoperable and was not working. And when one of the city workers went out to check it, it wasn't working, and it was repaired by the city. But at that point, they back billed the resident approximately well,
Don't do that, sir, please.
approximately $1,900. Well, I thought it was $1,900 because it was a $300 and some adjustment down to $1,600. And I was like, what? How does that doesn't jive with me. And I'm elected by the citizens to try to advocate for them. So I'm advocating for them. I don't think that if every citizen in Graham was voting today on a policy like this, they would not vote for this. I don't know that anybody would vote for this. I can't think of any reason why we would have any person on the council. We can't agree on this kind of change in a policy. I don't know what we're going to be able to agree on, but I'm very concerned about it. I think we have, as a city, have a responsibility to our residents to report their consumption of their water on a monthly basis. I know from owning rental property, from owning my own home, that the only time I know I have a leak sometimes is from getting a water bill. And at that point, I get the option of either looking for a leak that I have somewhere or curbing my consumption. But we take that right away from residents when we don't report to them adequately. And I get the meter was broken, but I feel like we have to do things like Mebane and Burlington does to ensure that the meters are working properly. And if you don't have a rise in consumption over a period of time, we need to be going out and checking those meters, and certainly not back charging somebody 3 years worth of water bills just because they had a faulty meter. I don't agree with that. I would like to see the policy changed. Mebane typically does not go back. The most that their policy allows them to go back is 3 months, but they said in actual application, they typically just fix the meter and move on. Burlington, exact same thing. And I have copies of the policy if the council would like to see those, but Burlington also does not go back on residents and back charge them 3 years worth of usage. Tried to resolve this ahead of time, but I'd like for the council to consider instructing the city manager to change this policy of collecting on broken water meters and going backwards. There was numerous occurrences of this, and maybe some of those residents are here tonight. I just think it's unfair to say either pay this or we're going to cut your water off. I don't like that.
From the city's point of view, the policy is fine. We do need to do something about looking at individual problems. We did over 200,000 readings, and then we ended up with 40 false readings from this problem. Of that 40, the biggest percentage was people tampering with the meters and actually stealing water from the city. And the next biggest group was people that damaged the wiring going to the meter. And we ended up with 2. Out of 200,000, we ended up with 2 in your situation. So the policy is fine. What we need to do, in my opinion, is to have the accounting system know when to send it to the city manager to do the right thing by our our citizens. Policy is fine. We catch somebody that's stealing water, and we're trying to do something about that now by going to smart meters, which will locate a leak that day. So we are doing our due diligence on it. So what do you think? What do y'all think?
Mr. Mayor, I agree. There isn't a problem with the policy. There is a problem with that being reported. It happens very rarely that this occurs in this kind of situation. We've only had 2 incidents of this particular kind.
Let me, please, before you do that, let me expand on that.
Sure.
We had sort of a coincidence with this gentleman's water meter. The water meter malfunctioned.
Right.
And they had a water leak in the same time. And it was an unfortunate combination of 2 things with 2 different meters. The rest of them have done what they needed to do to detect people stealing water. We go out there and look at it. And our problem was when it went into the front office, it was not moved to the back office to get a proper resolution for them. So now go back.
Certainly. Mr. Mayor, in light of that, I would like to see the city manager take a look into that policy, which would just be an in-house policy of notification. Again, I don't think the policy itself needs to be changed. I do think that they need to look into the policy of what happens up front.
Exactly. And we also need to train the people
Right.
at the front desk that
That's correct.
if
And I
this
think
comes
if
up,
we direct the city manager to look into that and get back to us with how that's going to be resolved.
what do you think, Greg?
I agree with that. I do think we shouldn't charge somebody, back charge someone for 3 years. That's a little bit steep. I think we need to give some kind of relief there in that situation. That's what I believe.
Could I add?
And by the way, you were on the council when this was passed.
No, I don't think so. I'm fairly confident that I was not.
You were, but anyway.
I don't think so, Your Mayor. I'd love to see that video.
We
But
didn't do videos then.
the list that we talked about ahead of the meeting, there was far more than 2 people on there. And certainly you're not insinuating that the only 2 people that I talked to were the 2 people that got charged $1,800 and $1,600 for a water bill. Those are just coincidentally the only 2 in the whole city of Graham.
Say that.
Okay, well, I mean, it's more than 2. There was more than a page.
There was 40.
I found 44 instances back 2013 or 14. Overbillings and underbillings are going to happen. They're going to happen in every system.
Right, but I'm
There's
just,
so many variables.
but in Mebane and Burlington, they do not go back. Even after the adjustment, the bill is still, what, $1,200, $1,300, something like that?
I'd rather not talk about individual accounts.
Well, I'm just saying, even after knowing this was not a situation of tampering, this person got a bill every single month. They had a reasonable expectation to think that their water bill was correct because it was it's only two of them living in a home. And between this block and this block, you're thinking, okay, well, I haven't used anything excessively. They did have a leak, but to go back and if you have a leak, you get the leak fixed. You don't sit there and let it run for 3 years and then expect you're going to get billed for it. I just don't think that's fair to do that when we have the culpability of making sure that the meter is correct. And, you know, Mebane doesn't do it. Burlington doesn't do it. Graham should not do it. We should not have a policy where we're going back and doing that. If you want to say that if there's some indication of meter tampering, I have no problem with a policy that talks about that. But for an average resident to have to go back and pay an exorbitant amount. I have another email from a third person that their water bill was right under $15,000. And they're having to pay right now an extra $1,600 every single month on their water bill to get it paid. I don't want to hear from those people about that. I'm advocating for the citizens that elected me, and I would like to see the policy changed. I don't see how anybody could be okay with charging people even the $1,300. And maybe you should hear from the resident himself.
We're
But
fine.
that's
with-
not
I know we
fair.
should, I know we should do something about this, but we have to charge a certain amount because the water is gone. The residents have
But it's our fault it's gone.
on a couple of them it was, no doubt. We need to do something about that. Let's change the policy, the way we handle when he comes to the city hall, he's got this enormous bill. Let's move him right into the city manager's office and take care of his bill individually.
We'll ask the resident if he's still satisfied with paying a bill that's over $1,000.
I understand he's not satisfied, but I'm saying there's no reason to change this policy. It's the way we need to change the billing.
You know, Jerry, the problem right now with government is that they don't have a servant's heart. We are elected to serve our community. We are not elected to mandate and dictate to the citizens, you're going to pay this. I'm sorry we had a broken water meter, but you're going to pay $1,500. I totally disagree with that. They should not have to pay. It's our meter, and I think you'd have a real problem in a court of law winning a case against a resident.
The reason the
that you're
policy
trying to
there,
collect
Jennifer,
$1,600
is that
from
the
them.
person stealing money, we have to be able to do
They
something
weren't
about it.
stealing.
I didn't say these people
Yeah.
were stealing money, Jennifer. The policy is there because the biggest majority of these people, of the hundreds of thousands, were stealing.
Well, I know of an ex-city council member who came up to me after the last meeting and said, hey, I got a great big huge water bill that was over $500, and I certainly believe he wasn't stealing. I think that there was many people on that list that I saw that I know are very fine and reputable people that have these huge water bills that I could name that are they're in the school system, very high up in the school system. These are not people that are out there trying to tamper with their meter, not trying to pay a water bill. I think the policy needs to be changed so that it doesn't happen, because the reality of it is somebody that comes down here and acts very nice and polite about it, they're going to walk away paying a $2,000 water bill. It's only somebody comes down here and raises a big fuss and finally gets to the city manager. And even in that situation, he's still walking away with a $1,500 water bill. I don't agree with that. The policy needs to be changed. If you want to prosecute people for meter tampering, by all means. Burlington does it, Mebane does it, every other large city around here does it. I have no problem with that. These are innocent victims that got a water bill every month. They paid their water bill, and they shouldn't be back charged 3 years for a $16,000 whatever water bill. That's a senior citizen. I know if that was my grandfather, he would be so upset about getting a bill like that. He would start deciding, well, I can't eat this week, or I can't get my medicine this week because I've got to pay this extra $50 every month or my water's going to be shut off. That upsets older residents, and we don't need to do that.
That's 100 years of water, by the way. 16,000.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we instruct the city manager to look into the policy and see if he can assist us with that. Not only policy of what happens when they come in the front door, but take a look at other policies and let's see if we can get in line with those.
Before I ask for a second, I do want this gentleman to speak, if you don't mind.
Certainly.
Okay, would you come up, sir?
How y'all doing?
Let me have your
I'm
name and
Billy
address.
Warren. This is my wife Karen. We live at 640 Windy Drive. I talked to Frankie last week. I've never met Jennifer before, but my father-in-law works for Chuck. My point of this, and I explained it to Frankie last week. When we got the water bill, I said I blurted $1,800 a while ago. She's right; it was $1,600 because she's met my wife. My whole thing on it, if my father-in-law didn't work for Chuck, or my wife didn't talk to Jennifer, we wouldn't be here tonight. And this is exactly what I told Frankie last week. What about the 17 people in my subdivision? And I know one that got charged $2,400. They paid it. I didn't pay it because I wasn't wrong. I didn't steal the water. And when you sitting there making an accusation of somebody stealing the water, I'm just going along with the story. When somebody's in here and they're hearing you saying they stole the water, that kind of upsets them. Frankie came over there last week. He put a meter on my meter. He was very helpful. But I still wasn't happy, and I appreciate everything Frankie did. But what my point is, it ain't what you know, it's who you know. Because the other 17 people in my subdivision, they ain't come up there. And when I come up here the first time about my water bill, I think that guy, I don't know if it was you, it might have been, it was another gentleman. But he tells me that he don't have no boss. So then I come up here the second time, and Frankie, is this what I told you last week? Exact same words, wasn't it? Second time I come up there, I go back to the guy again, to the gentleman again. I can't talk to nobody. But my point across is, if we didn't know Jennifer, we wouldn't be here tonight. And Frankie went in there last week and made that adjustment. If I would have known her, even though I had to pay the usage of the water, he found an overage of $400 and some odd dollars come back. That's what we're saying. But I think the whole bill should be washed. Because when I walked in that room that day in the utility department up here to pay my water bill, it's got a sign on that window saying that y'all do maintenance on y'all's meters every 30. It was either 30 days or 90 days. Okay, just like Jennifer stated, it was 32 months. Who did the maintenance? Why should I have to pay for that?
I agree with you 100%.
I drive a tractor trailer. If I go down the road and I drag my tires a mile down the road, should the people behind me get the citation or should I get the citation?
I agree with you 100% that this is a problem.
It is a problem.
200,000 readings and we have 2. It's a pretty good average.
No, it ain't 2. It ain't 2. Because Frankie told me in my subdivision that there were 17 in my subdivision.
There were 17 water leaks in your subdivision?
No, not water leaks. Not water leaks.
$2,400 bill is going to be a water leak.
I didn't say I had a $2,400 bill.
No, the one you
Right.
mentioned. I'm sorry.
Suffice it to say, there are lots of variables in water
Um,
billing and metering.
There is. Let us try to do what we're going to do. I think what we're going to do is leave the policy in place and take care of the billing situation at the front desk and Frankie's office, the way you did it the other day. And I apologize if people were rude to you or they gave you bad information. Everybody that works for the city has a boss.
Right.
Including that fellow right there.
Well, I mean, we all have faults. I understand that.
No, a boss, I said.
Oh, faults. Well, I mean, but my thing is, though, what about just say the 17 people in my subdivision, okay? And I don't know their names. I know one other person. They didn't come to Frankie.
That's an enormous amount of water leaks in one neighborhood. It truly is.
It's an older neighborhood.
Windy Drive is not an older neighborhood. No, it's not.
It's 98. 1998 is when the house was built.
My house was built in 54. So that's
Okay, well, I mean, I'm just saying it's still old. It's 20 years, over 20 years old. But my thing is, they're not here tonight.
Well, what we're doing about it is exactly what he did for you. We're going with the next generation water meters, which will tell when you get up in the middle of the night if you use any water.
Right.
If you have, I've got one gentleman that's got a 10-gallon water leak per day, and we know it's there. But he says it's cheaper to pay for the 10 gallons
Right.
than just to fix it. But whatever, if you wash dishes, that meter's going to tell us you were washing dishes. If you wash your clothes in the morning when you get up to shower, it goes into a computer in here, And if you have a leak, it's gonna start binging on us.
Right.
And we're gonna go down there and look at it. So,
You know, my thing is, you're saying you're gonna do that. That's fine. But what about the $800 I owe now?
well, I'll have Frankie look at it and we'll see what we can do.
He's already looked at it, and that's what he come down to. That's why I'm here tonight. I mean, there's no concern. I mean, you need to put your feet in my shoes. How would you feel about it? You
I
wouldn't
know,
like it.
I would be the same way, and I would,
And it's $800 after he's already paid, because the only other adjustment was 400. So you've already paid 400. So
Yes, ma'am.
total, it's a $1,200 overage that you're requiring him to pay. And if he lived in Burlington, he wouldn't know it. And if he lived in Mebane, he wouldn't know it. And I don't like that. And I mean, I'm happy to defer to our city attorney here, but either one of these attorneys are going to tell you, you would have a problem in court if a resident argued that they don't owe the city of Graham that. You would have a problem because we didn't have a meter operating correctly. I don't understand why are we not here to help the residents?
we are, but.
I
to
don't
drop
get
the
it, why you
complete
don't want to change the
is-
policy.
You don't change the policy, you change the way we enact the policy.
No,
There's
you
a
still-
leak, there's a
it's-
leak procedure to change, and that's what we need to do.
Jerry, it's hundreds of people that are being overcharged for water. It's literally, there was pages of the ones there that were the high ones, but there are people that are being overcharged, and it happens on a regular basis. Mebane, it happens. Burlington, it happens. They understand that. You go out, fix the meter, and you move forward with your life. You don't back charge people that had no.
Is that not what I'm saying, Jennifer? I'm saying take care of the way we pay for the thing, not the policy itself. The policy is fine.
Did you read the policy?
Of course, I read it. You
don't.
read it when you voted on it.
No, I did not vote on this. Jerry, you're cracking me up because I've never voted on this. I'm telling you right now. It was after I was off the council.
Well, my whole thing
I
is,
understand.
my whole
You
point
need
is
some-
like, just say, what I'm trying to get a point across here is, I reckon I'm gonna be stuck with an $800 bill because y'all don't want to do nothing about it. But my whole point of it is,
I do.
I understand the 17, and I appreciate that a whole lot, and I appreciate what Frankie's done. I do. But my whole thing about it is the 17 people in my subdivision and the 40 other people in Graham, or the whole, if it's total of 40, they haven't been to Frankie.
You need
What
to
if
spread the
they had an overage? They had, Frankie pulled me up and said, well, man, you had a leak between this time and this time. Not the whole 32 months that I have a leak. It was just this time to this time. How much money did y'all get out of them that y'all owe them back?
The reason you have a policy in place like this, and yours is unfortunate, I know that. But if the policy is gone, a person that is gonna unplug their meter or something like that, say, well, it's worth it. I'll unplug it and you can't back charge me. We have to have some way to charge somebody that is doing that.
Jerry, if that's your only hang up, put the policy that you can do that. You can, I mean, it's a criminal
Tampering.
offense for
Well, I know
tampering.
that, and that's part of the policy. The policy is not broken. Our way of handling it, the policy is broken.
Yeah, because it makes me look like I've been tampering with the stuff.
No,
I mean,
we never-
yeah, it
we
does,
never
man, that's what you're saying.
No, we never said that. We knew your meter, when we looked at it, we knew your meter malfunctioned.
Mhm.
It malfunctioned, and it was a coincidence that y'all had a water leak at the same time. I agree.
But what you're not listening to me is, we didn't have a water leak the whole time. I want a water leak the whole time.
What is your normal water bill?
It was like in between 25 and 30, about $34.
About 34 and 1,600, and you'll see how many years it would take to pay that. That's years and years and years of water.
That's right.
I know, and
Yeah, but Frankie went back and looked at it. And that's what I'm saying, man. I mean, there's something wrong here.
there is definitely
Frankie even
something
showed me last week that our average water bill now is like $40 a month. We just went over that.
Well, at $40 a month, that's 100 months. That's what that bill would have to get to at 16. Somewhere along the line, a commode hung up or something. Y'all on vacation and a commode hung up, or something happened. But we do need a way to relieve you of this burden. We really do. And the way to do it is to, when you go in there and say, I've got this giant water bill, they take them directly back to the back office.
But my thing is on that, sir, is it takes you 32 months to find it.
If you have a yeah, you're right. We should have found it.
That's right. And now I'm paying for it.
Well, we need to take care of you. We do. But we don't need to change all the rules in the city of Graham to take care of your water bill. We need to do it in-house. And we can do it by you talking to Frankie and us to take care of something. If we're still charging too much, then you come to the city council. So then we'll do something about that.
It clearly says in the provision of one of the, it says if the customer is not deliberately getting illegal service, charged back up to 12 months, including the current bill. If the customer is deliberately getting illegal service, charged back to the maximum allowed by law, including the current bill. I want something changed in the policy that says that this person is not doing anything illegal, then we are not going to back bill them more than 3 months, which is what we should be checking these meters. If there's a consistent reading of the minimum for 3 months, we need to be out sending somebody to check that meter to see why it's still reading. I mean, it could be a vacant house, it could be a lot of different reasons, but if it's a faulty meter, we need to be fixing it every 90 days. So I don't agree with back charging people up to 3 years or up to a year. I don't agree with that. I'd like to make a motion to change the policy.
I already have a motion on the
I have a
floor. You'll
motion
have
on the
to-
floor, and I'd like to amend my motion, please. Mr. Mayor?
Anything else?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thanks, sir. I appreciate you being here. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to amend the motion, not only to have the city manager and the staff look into the policy itself, but I'd also like to look into these, to this gentleman and anyone else that has this issue. Let's look into their concerns about their payments and what they're paying. Please, if you will.
I'll second that motion.
Let's read the motion, please. Please.
The best that I've got is, we'd like to make a motion that the city manager and staff look into the city policy and Mr. Warren's particular account and any account like his, and
Reimburse, or Frankie, you need to do what is right by these people as much as possible, please. So let's get this situation resolved.
Got a motion and a second. Before we do that, now let me get this right. In my opinion, what you're saying is if this gentleman's bill is averaging $50, then we go back and do $50 unless he has a leak.
I didn't say that. What I said is we need to go back and review the policy. And if we have an issue like this where we know that we have something this egregious, that we need to correct that situation at this point. If they have a $1,600 bill, then we need to fix it.
Thank you, Melody. I agree with you.
We've been saying the same thing, Jennifer, just different ways. All right. So I got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Motion carries 5-0. Good deal. All right.
Ms. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
this is a question. Councilmember Talley referred to some sort of document that at least she had seen, I don't know if all council members have seen, with some sort of listing of this problem.
I haven't seen it, so.
I'd like to get a copy of that, but I'll talk to you about it.
Account information, I'd have to redact it. Identifying information on utility accounts, I'd have to redact it.
Did you provide that to Councilmember Talley?
Seen it in my office.
Unredacted?
My notes.
Well, I'd like to have the same information you presented to Councilmember Talley, to have a copy of that.
I'll check with our council. Fine. It's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. All right, next we have B, Downtown Master Plan discussion. Jennifer, yes for this also?
So we had talked about, I'd like to try to look at what we can do to make some changes to the downtown master plan, based on the comments that the council members had. And so just want to see what our next steps are to try to start working on that. Either scheduling sessions to meet or what we can do to make some
Are you,
And I
you
don't,
just want an idea of us get together and sit down and talk about the direction we want?
yeah, I mean, at least I haven't heard this sweeping opposition to things. It was more of like, we don't want to put it in writing. And I'm like, let's just put it in writing so that it's not, doesn't, I think Melody had referred to, you know, people were concerned about things that may not even happen. So let's put it in writing. And I think that maybe we could actually,
Okay.
Let's agree on, let's put in writing the things we can at least agree on.
I'll get the city clerk to do a doodle poll. We'll try to meet between now and the next month's meeting to give us, say, a week's heads up on that. Darcy, if you would.
Mr. Mayor, I object.
Okay.
I believe that if we are going to do that, I've said this before in public, you are not, 4 of you, including myself, are not engineers. And if you start playing with this plan, you are going to take away something you shouldn't be messing with. I would like to make a motion to instruct the staff to develop an RFP for review by the council for an update and review of the current plan or parts thereof.
Let's continue.
If we're
with
going
the-
to do it, then do it right.
Let's continue with the doodle poll. I think that's my call to call the meetings. So we'll do a doodle poll on that. And now let's go with your motion. Repeat your motion, please.
I would like to instruct the staff to develop an RFP to review by the council for an update and review of the current plan or parts thereof.
Do I have a second to that? Motion dies from lack of a second. So we'll do the doodle poll and just sit down and talk this over and see where we're at with it. And then we may have to do that.
Doing it back.
Could be, but let's do something. All right. Got a question?
Mr. Mayor, while you're on this topic, is there a final copy that the city has of the master plan as adopted back in the fall
It'd be on the website.
Online.
with the changes?
Yes.
That all, Tom?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good deal. Next, we go to number 4, recommendations for the planning board public hearing reserved on 54, application by Brandon Martin. Nathan, you handling this for us, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As the council is aware, the planning board has tabled this one, and therefore the city council may not take action on it this month. They could talk about it next month if they wanted to. The recommendation is to table it and discuss it at their next meeting.
Questions for the staff? Melody, please.
No, not at this time.
I will make a motion that we table this until such time as the planning board has made a decision or not made a decision.
Okay, let me go ahead and poll the rest of the council. Chip, questions?
No questions.
Jennifer, questions?
No.
Okay. So we have a motion to table this till the planning and zoning board has met on this. I need a second. I'll second it. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed likewise. So do we need to name a date, Brian, or just wait till the planning?
I think date, time certain would be best.
Can we come back to that after the amendment for the planning board?
Okay, yeah.
So we'll do that on the items not on tonight's agenda, if that's okay.
Okay. I'll write you in here, Nathan.
Sorry, Brian, there's an amendment to change the meeting date.
Next, we go to B, Valor Ridge, application by David Michaels for subdivision of R12 lots. Nathan, you're handling this also?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. The application before us is a request to subdivide approximately 52 acres of the subject property for up to 114 single-family residential lots. The properties are currently vacant, and the Technical Review Committee has reviewed the application and provided comments to the applicant via the planning director. As of the publication of the agenda packet, the applicant had not responded to the comments. There were substantial revisions required to the plans, but they do not affect the number of proposed lots, nor the access points from Wildwood Lane, nor Parham Drive, and the planning board did recommend to approve this.
Question for the staff. Ricky, we'll start with you, please.
I have nothing to start.
Deborah?
Yes, sir. Nathan, I'm looking over the plat and I don't know, probably 40 or 50 parcels. Let me go back. This is an R12 subdivision, correct?
Yes, sir. It's zoned R12.
Yes, sir, it was. There's quite a few parcels that are less than the R12 requirement. There's some around 10, 11. Why is this when, I mean, it's an R12 development?
The ordinance allows for an open space subdivision, and it may be helpful if I read an excerpt from that portion. Under the open space provision, it says, the intent of this provision is to allow for the development of open space residential subdivisions by right within the R12, R15, and R18 zoning districts. These provisions seek to encourage the development of compact neighborhoods and rural compounds that set aside significant natural vistas and landscape features for permanent conservation. In the R12 zone, the open space minimum square footage is 10,000 square feet. So it reduces the total square footage required from 12,000 square feet to 10,000 square feet.
Thank you, sir. So you tell me everything on this subdivision is in accordance with our subdivision regulations?
With the amendments that were proposed by TRC, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Jennifer, questions, please.
So it's my understanding that this developer is going to be seeking annexation into the city once the subdivision is complete. Is that correct?
It would be at the discretion of the developer.
Has he told you that he was going to be seeking annexation?
I have not received anything in writing one way or the other. But
I didn't ask you in writing. I asked you, did he tell you that he was going to seek annexation?
I have the general impression that he is desirous of seeking annexation. I don't recall if that was a conversation with him or what has happened for his other developments.
Okay. Is everything that he's doing in that development, if that property were to be in the city of Graham, would he be doing the exact same thing?
Yes.
Okay, so streets are to the same dimensions, all of that. City trash truck can turn around, curb, guttering, all that.
So NCDOT has a 27-foot back of curb to back of curb street pavement course within a 50-foot right-of-way. And the city of Graham, that is our standard street right-of-way. So it would be exactly the same. The only thing is that the roads would be built to a lesser standard, as NCDOT's minimum requirement, if I remember correctly, and Chip knows this better than I do, is 8 inches of stone and 2 inches of asphalt, whereas the city of Graham's minimum requirement is 10 inches of stone and 3 inches of asphalt. Given the amount of clay that's in our dirt, the standard that applies for the rest of the state is sometimes a little squishy in this area.
So do you know what they're planning on putting there? To our standard or to the state standard?
It wasn't identified on the plan.
Okay, it's not identified on the plan, but I remember reading in the notes, it said that it would be to city standards. I believe it said on the TRC notes. I'm sorry, give me a second to locate that, but it does say, all construction is to comply with the City of Graham standard details and specifications. That include the road?
So that was written by the city's engineer, who subsequently writes down that an annexation is required, but that's not actually true. If you look further through, NCDOT makes the statement that it is necessary to identify who is responsible for the maintenance of the roads, whether it's NCDOT or the City of Graham.
Okay.
Or if they were to be private.
Okay. My argument here is that if you know that a developer is going to be bringing that subdivision into the city and we have requirements, is it something that you feel that this developer would be open to comply with if we requested him to do that?
I am 100% certain that the City of Graham will not maintain an 8 and 2 street in this subdivision, period, full stop. Burke would not allow it, Josh would not allow it, I would not allow it, Frankie would not allow it, Aaron would not allow it, and it shouldn't be done. It would increase the burden for the taxpayers in excess of what our current standards say. Now, Mallard Creek has 8 and 2 streets, but it is a subdivision with NCDOT streets, not in the city of Graham.
I'm sorry, Frankie. You're saying that Burke would not be for, is that what you're saying? That Burke would not be for maintaining those streets? Is that what
Burke
you
would
just
not
said?
allow the installation of anything less than 10 and 3 for a street that is to be maintained by the city of Graham. If the city of Graham were to maintain it, it must be 10 and 3. Before we would take ownership of the street, it shall be 10 and 3.
Okay, so this developer already knows to put the street in at 10 and 3.
The developer did not indicate in writing whether they are going to annex into the city or not. I believe that they are, and many of the notes were drafted that way. But until we have a guarantee in writing, a petition for annexation signed by the owners of the location and a corporate limits expansion, it is not within our right to assume that it's going to be within the city.
Okay, well, I would say that it's so when you're talking to him about annexation, you certainly, I mean, obviously he knows what he would have to do that. So you're letting him know that in these TRC meetings, right?
Yes, and the applicant has done an annexation with the city of Graham before.
Okay. So one of the things that I want to talk about is, you know, I wasn't on the council before when this was rezoned from R18 to R12. I'm a big proponent of the residents and the current residents that have already vested their money in their homes. Obviously, the rezoning is a dead issue, but the fact that Chip brought up that the lots are going from, instead of from R12 to, I mean, from R18 to R12, now some of them are just 10,000 square foot lots. You know, when you look at the lot sizes, I mean, some are 30-some feet wide in the front. You know, you're going to basically have a driveway that's 15 foot, if we can imagine, 15 foot of grass, another 15-foot driveway, grass, another 15-foot driveway. I don't see how that's consistent with our 2035 plan that talks about having the driveways in the back and talks about having more open space. And I find it interesting that they're making the smaller lots based on this open space provision, but all the open space just happens to be in the flood zone that nobody wants to necessarily pay or have the cost of building in. So I think the intent of the provision in the development ordinance about taking a specific space of, say, 20 units are going to be here. If we cluster those units and then allow for a park or an open space, that was, in my opinion, the intent of that ordinance. It wasn't to take all the land that's in the flood zone that you can't use or you don't want to use and say, that's now going to be my open space, and now I'm going to circumvent the rule and I don't have to have a 12,000 square foot lot. I'm going to develop 10,000 square foot lots, because clearly this council already voted against R9. So you're going to not only make the existing residents there go from R18 to R12, now to basically R10, which doesn't exist, but 10,000 square foot lots. And some of those lots, because they're very deep, you've got this, when you're looking at it from the roadway, the facade of the particular lot, you have 30 foot of road frontage, a lot of 30, some are 50. That's not consistent, really, in my opinion, with what the intent of that subdivision, those subdivision rules are. What is your comment about that?
So I'm an imperfect person, but my only ability is to interpret what regulations the City of Graham Council has passed in the past. The open space criteria, directly under where it says that R12 can be 10,000 square feet minimum space requirement, says designated buffered areas together with in selecting land to be set aside as usable open space, the developer shall choose areas from the following categories in descending order of importance before designating other land for open space use. 1. Designated buffer areas together with any floodway and floodplain they are buffering. 2. Land within 30 feet of other bodies of water or watercourses. 3. Other flood hazard areas or land with slopes greater than 15%. Slopes greater than 15%. 4. Other hazard areas or environmentally sensitive areas such as noise and privacy buffers for surrounding properties and neighborhoods. 5. Lands that will protect important view sheds and or trees along existing roads and provide privacy for development. 6. Other areas within the proposed development. I'm trying to interpret this the best way that I can. If the regulations are not something that the council likes, then let's amend the regulations to be what the council wants to have.
Is Parham Drive going to have to be improved in order to accommodate this traffic flow of 1,173 new daily vehicle trips out in and out of those 3 subdivisions that are existing?
Absolutely. NCDOT will require that the improvements to Parham Drive be made so that it meets their minimum roadway standards. There's a number of different standards that they have for subdivision streets. The applicant will be able to choose from those based on who maintains them. It's my understanding that if it's the city that's maintaining them, the applicant intends to continue our course through there. If NCDOT is going to maintain them, the applicant may have more of a country feel to their street, have a 20-foot ribbon paved road.
How much slab construction is being considered in the subdivision? Do you know? Have you gotten that?
There have been no plans submitted to the city, and it's not a criteria that would impact the subdivision approval.
I'm just asking because the floodplain areas, there was quite a bit of floodplain here.
Anything that is in the floodplain must have its finished floor elevation at least 2 feet above the base flood elevation.
I know that. That's why I was asking if you had those plans yet. I don't like, as a council member, is the developer here? Okay. I like to see, because we were trying to get some of this information ahead of time, and you said he hadn't responded yet. I'd like to have been able to see, I guess, a little bit more of the development, the final, the answers to some of the questions that were brought up in TRC. When was the TRC meeting? January 13th?
That sounds correct. The final answers to the TRC questions won't be until the subdivision plans are. I don't have any idea what the cost of the engineering is for moving from a sketch to a final subdivision plan, but TRC approvals have significant expense that is incurred above and beyond the sketch plan that there's before the city council to review today.
And in this area, how many dwelling units per acre do we have?
In the comprehensive plan or proposed?
Proposed.
Slightly more than 2.
And is there any reason that when this developer looked at building this, that he didn't try to acquire, and maybe this is a question for the developer, but the property coming all the way to connecting to Highway 87 so that you would be able to put in that turn lane maybe off of main thoroughfare, or have a connection there off of 87, because it seems like it stops and you're doing this through 3 residential neighborhoods that are already existing.
Our subdivision standards say nothing about connecting to NCDOT main thoroughfares or right-of-ways that have in excess of 10,000 cars per day.
I get that. I know it doesn't, but I'm just saying it's 1,100 and some cars now a day, and the only way to access those is through one of these 3 neighborhoods that are existing. You can't go off like a main thoroughfare and connect to the property. I was having trouble, finding it when I went out there to try to look at it. But is there, you don't seem to have any concerns about that either?
That would probably be a question for the builder.
Okay. And the last thing is, do we have any indication of what the cost to the city for possible annexation would be?
Early for that. We'd have to know the value of the home, the number of homes.
Okay.
Melody, questions, please.
I do. Question for Nathan. In the information that we have, Nathan, it also alludes to the fact that there are substantial required revisions to the plans that are going to be made. For all of you, this is in the step forward of doing subdivisions and doing these developments. We're only in step B, okay? There are a lot more steps that have to be done. The first one was to do the rezoning. The second is to approve the subdivision. The next goes through all the state statutes and laws that have to be met, including with TRC and the city's laws as well as state statutes. Anything with water, sewer, anything with streets and DOT, any of that needs to be done still in the future. Let me make this point. And Bob, if you would care to say, once a developer, a landowner and a developer, once they meet the standards that are written by state law and that are written in these ordinances, they have a right to build what they want, as long as they have met all of those standards. All right, so let's make that clear. All right, landowners and developers have rights. All right, and this is their right, correct, Bob? Thank you.
No question. Chip wanted to ask another question, so I'll go back to him, then I'll poll the council.
I know you
again.
had to pull it back again. I'm sorry, but a little bit of confusion here. Nathan, is this going to be a state maintained subdivision or is it going to be a city maintained subdivision? Or do we know yet?
We don't have anything conclusive in writing. I certainly think that it's up to the city council to say one way or the other, or the applicant to present evidence one way or the other. But until there's a document that's in writing, they really have the authority to do it either way.
Well, I'm sure that you know, and the developer knows, if it's going to be state maintained streets, they're going to have to submit the roadway plans to the state for approval. So we don't know yet. So it's either going to be 8 and 2 or 10 and 3. If it's ours, it's going to be 10 and 3.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to get clarification. And there again, one more time, we are in accordance with the rules and regulations of our subdivision policy.
Yes, sir. One point of clarification for individuals that might not follow, the 10 inches is 10 inches of stone
Right.
underneath 3 inches of blacktop.
Yeah, right. 10 inches on 3 inches of black base, I2, binder, whatever. I got you. Thank you, sir.
Council, poll the council again. Jennifer, any more questions?
No.
Melody, any more?
Yes, sir.
Ricky, any more?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a public hearing. This, it was not advertised as such. We are now going to take a vote on this. I will move you to page 83 in your agenda and ask for a motion from the council.
Well, I thought we were going to be able to ask the developer questions.
Developer here? Yes. Okay. We'll postpone that. Come on up if you would. I'll go to Melody first with questions for the developer. Let me have your name and address, please, sir.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is David Michaels. My address is 5603 New Garden Village Road in Greensboro.
Thank you for being here.
I'm with
I have no
Windsor
questions.
Homes. We are the applicant under my name.
Thank you. I have no questions, sir.
Ricky, have you got any questions?
No, sir.
Just real quick, do you know if you'll go with state maintenance or be on city maintenance?
As Councilmember Wiggins stated, this is a process and we
Right.
are in a step. And so we have this property under contract. And so typically, we don't like to get to the annexation stage till we feel comfortable that we are going to have the approval, because otherwise we're encumbering somebody else's property with an annexation that they may not want. So we haven't applied for that, but it is our intent to bring this subdivision into the city of Graham. And so
Okay.
before, based on everything we've submitted to TRC, we would be following the Graham requirements for that street construction for the area that's within the city of Graham. Parham Road.
Correct. Yeah,
would-
that is a state.
That's a state
yeah,
maintained
state
road. We're
maintained
not
road.
seeking to annex.
Are you going to widen that street?
Pardon me?
Are you going to widen that street?
That will be subject to the DOT, and they have indicated they would like widening as well as strengthening of that
Right.
road all the way out to Highway 87.
Okay.
Those additional turn lanes will probably be required on 87 to accommodate the traffic now coming in this direction.
Thank you, sir.
Jennifer, questions?
Knowing the opposition that you had from residents that already live in these 3 subdivisions surrounding this property, and the connectivity that you're going to have to their streets, and the impact with 1,100 cars a day, is there some reasoning for why you, when you didn't get the R9 zoning, you still drew R10 10,000 square foot lots on the property instead of trying to do 12,000 square foot lots, which is
We originally
what was supposed to be the compromise?
We originally applied as an R9 subdivision, and we had represented we would have about 130 lots on this site at that time. As we went through the zoning process, at this meeting, there was some discussion about that, and we offered, in consideration of some of the discussion, an R12 zoning to council with the expectation and understanding of the open space provision in the ordinance, which would allow us to reduce the lot sizes below 12,000 square feet, but we would still be held to those standards, which among other things requires a minimum 60-foot lot frontage at the building line. You can have a cul-de-sac lot that is narrower than 60 foot, but at the building line, you have to have a 60-foot wide lot to accommodate under an R12 zoning. So yes, we did understand that there would be lots smaller than R12 or 12,000 square feet, but that is the provision of the ordinance and the way that we understood it. This is not really any different. These lots are actually larger than what we are developing currently in the Forks of Alamance subdivision on Rogers Road. That's zoned under an R9 classification. Those are 9,000 square foot lots, slightly smaller, but our intent is to do basically exact same house, same product in this location, because we've had good success, good reception from the market and acceptance of that product in Graham. And so we would like to continue that on this particular location. This site is constrained by 2 street connections that we are connecting into. Both of those are public streets, one maintained by the city of Graham, one maintained by the NCDOT. And so that is the access to be able to get to this property, and this property owner would like to be able to enjoy the right to utilize his property similar to those around him in terms of doing a residential neighborhood. And so we feel like that we are consistent with what's going on around us and providing a subdivision that's already been proven to be acceptable in this marketplace.
On Valentine Court, you said there's 60-foot road frontage? 'Cause every one of these lots are less than 60 foot.
At the building line.
At the building line, is that not correct? We have to be a 60-foot lot.
It appears that way on lot number 95. They're marked 60 foot at 30 foot. And that appears to be the setback line. The front setback in R12 is 30 foot.
I mean, on a cul-de-sac, you couldn't possibly have 60-foot lots and get any kind of access onto a cul-de-sac.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but when you have really long lots and you make them very narrow, it kind of defeats the purpose of trying to get that open space. In addition, the 2 open spaces that you have is 14 acres over here near the stream instead of, you know, it's not really accessible to the entire subdivision. I mean, I think at least the way I understood the provision, is the open space. Yes, it does allow you to do this, but the point, the intent of that, in the spirit of, sometimes these things are written in words that when the person, the author is writing them, that the intent is very different than sometimes the way people interpret them. And the open space is not just to be in some place where it's unusable land, or I understand that when you're developing and you have flood lots or lots that are located in a floodplain, that in order to be able to kind of preserve that open space, we allow you to cluster in other areas. But I do think the intent of this should be more of, hey, the lots need to be the standard 12,000 square feet, and if they're and if you're going to have open space, it needs to be usable open space that the entire subdivision can access, not up here in the corner where there's like a flood zone, and then over here in the back by the stream where there's a flood zone. To me, I'm thinking it's a park in the middle of a subdivision, and this is the kind of a way to inspire a developer to give up a lot to put in a park. That's my belief and what I'm thinking. So any possibility of that?
It's hard for me to ascertain the intent of
I get
council
that.
or whoever wrote this ordinance at the time it was put together. We have to go by basically what is there in writing. And I have experienced and utilized a provision like this in other communities around. I've been doing this for over 30 years. Greensboro, most places, Guilford County have provisions for a reduction in lot sizes if you do a clustering type option. And the intent, I think, of most of those situations is to protect those environmentally sensitive areas, the floodplains, the streams, the steep slopes, fragile areas like that, to help cluster that development up onto the more usable parts of the land. And so that is what we are trying to do here with this, and working with the way that the ordinance is currently written.
So no park possibilities in the 114 unit
Well, we
development.
have access to that open space, a couple places. One, through, we intend to do a dedicated access. We showed it originally as an easement, but we would have an easement on one cul-de-sac or one location, and a dedicated access down to that floodplain, which is, we've already said that we would work with the Haw River Trail folks to, they could come through and we provide an easement for the trail access down by the stream. And so, and that way it would be a park area that is accessible to the entire neighborhood.
Does it flood?
It does occasionally. That's where they're putting the trail. Similar to what we did in the Forks of Alamas, where we worked with that same group to provide access to a flood area, the trail area in that subdivision.
Okay.
Is that all, Jennifer?
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask you, if it was zoned R9 with the same restrictions as the same ordinance, what would be the minimum size lot?
I believe that's a 9,000 square foot lot.
Would it go down 1,000 foot like it did with the R10?
There's not a
There's no
ability for the R9 to move down. It's the R18, R15, and R12 that can move down.
Okay. Thank you.
But
Appreciate you being here, sir.
The developer, I believe the number was 17 lots. Yeah, the original application for R9 was.
We had shown a sketch, I think, of about 130 lots. This shows 114. I've already represented, I have provided an informal response to Mr. Page, a plan that does show a site that is only going to have 109 lots on it. We decided not to cross one other stream at the northwest corner of the property, just for our own consideration. That was not going to be in our best interest to try to do that. So the final plan will have no more than 109 lots, I can tell you that. And as we are working through some other wording in the ordinance and exactly what the intent of that may or may not be, it could be even slightly less than that. So, but I can stand here and say that I know it's not going to be more than 109.
Well, how are we approving a drawing that may or may be 109 or 114 or?
The way the ordinance is written, an applicant can at any point in time reduce their density. So for example, Dennis Eulis with the challenge took out one of the townhomes on Lake Point Drive, or maybe, I can't remember what the northern one is. I think it's Lake Point Drive. And there's been a couple places where that's been done, where a developer ran into some sort of topographical feature or wanted a bigger house on one of the lots and the setbacks wouldn't work or something to that effect, and they recombined two lots to make one larger lot. Just like subdivision use by right, you have the right to recombine the lots as long as you own both of them and they meet the standard of your underlying limits.
Well, obviously hindsight's 20/20, but I think the council, if they were going to rezone it, that they should have had some provision that stated that if you're going to change them from R18 to R12, that they would have required 12,000 square foot lots for these existing residents that have already made their investment in their home, which is the biggest investment they probably have in their lifetime. I hope that you'll consider what I've said. I've heard from a lot of residents. I'm sure you have as well. And if there's a financial way that you can make the lots larger to accommodate and not try to use this provision, and be able to do that, and still, it's always good to have a happy neighbor.
Well, we want to provide a lot of happy neighbors for them too, so.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your time. All right, I'll move you back to page 83 on your agenda. I'll ask for a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the application be approved. The application is consistent with the Graham 2035 Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you,
The
ma'am.
following supports the recommendation allowing a subdivision in this location, removes households from the potential harm from floodways, policy 4.3.1, and protects green space 3.2.4, and promotes a greenway trail system 4.2.1.
83. Got it. Thank you, ma'am. I've got a motion. I need a second. I will second the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Motion carries 3-2. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight on that. Next, we have a public hearing, text amendment, planning board meeting times, AM 2001, an amendment to the existing planning board meeting date. Let's see, I've got Nathan handling this also.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The City Council has changed their meeting time to the second Tuesday of the month. As such, it is staff's recommendation that the planning board move their meeting to the fourth Tuesday of the month and reserve flexibility to change the date at some point in the future through notice and vote of the planning board.
Question for the staff. Ricky, we'll start with you, please.
Yes, sir.
You have questions?
No question.
Jennifer, questions?
Are we on the, I'm sorry, I have trouble reading this.
I'm sorry, we're on 4C.
No, I know, but the section about voting for the officers at the meeting following the appointments, I disagree with. I don't think we need to be electing a board of the chairman of the board every single time somebody gets put on a board or leaves a board or whatever. I like the way the language is written now, where that chairman stays in place. Seems like there's a concerted effort to try to get rid of a chairman for some reason, and trying to do everything they can to make sure that that happens, but I kind of disagree with that. So I'd like to request that we don't make that text amendment other than to the meeting times.
Councilmember Talley, I believe the text before the City Council was that recommended by the planning board in its entirety, including the chairman.
I don't care.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
But my understanding of the way the planning board recommended it, it's if there's a vacancy
Vacancy,
in the
yeah.
chairmanship
We're
or
only talking
the
about
vice chairmanship only
Right.
would necessitate a vote,
Right, you're correct.
not just a new member being on.
There's nothing about a new member in the text.
It's only the chairman and vice, if there's a vacancy, such as happened within the past year or two when a member resigned midterm, then a subsequent chairman was elected. It's my understanding of what they recommended.
I think that's the way I read it too. All right, who are we at? Jennifer asked a question. Ricky,
I've asked him,
Melody, did you ask? Do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
All right, Jennifer, did that answer your question?
Well, the part that's scratched out for me in the old amendment says the planning board, as soon as it's practical after its appointment, shall meet and organize by electing one of its members chairman, and that was scratched out, and shall also elect secretary as a member of the board. Why are we scratching that out? Why are we not leaving that in?
I believe that was written in 1953 when the planning board was first originally formed. As you're not forming a planning board now, there's no need for their first meeting to elect officials. They already have a chair and a vice chair.
Okay, well, I was just reading that as if you get a new member on the planning board, you again make a decision to now, we've now got the votes to oust the chairman, so we're gonna now, that's the way I interpreted it. I just want to make sure that however it's written, that is not gonna be the case.
The part that is struck through is part that staff recommended removing from the development ordinance.
So planning board gets a new member. They're not gonna have the option to then vote in a new chairman.
As the existing language says, elections shall occur at the regularly scheduled November meeting of the board, period. And then the recommendation is, if an officer of the board leaves the board, elections shall occur at the next scheduled meeting. And that way, if, for example, when our Chair Rumley stepped down, there could have been an election at the very next meeting.
When who, Rumley? Right. If the chairman steps down, then it's fine to obviously have an election at the next meeting. My concern is that someone, because you're scratching out this point about electing the chairman in the existing language as it was, that if someone goes on the planning board that isn't the chairman and the chairman exists, that say you had the votes now to change the chairman to someone else, you wouldn't then have another election.
I think it makes sense to ask one of the lawyers to interpret this at this point. I believe that it was written this way for the original organization of the planning board and is therefore no longer necessary as the planning board already exists.
We'll give Brian a second to look that over and come back.
Do you
with
see
a
what I'm
ruling.
saying, Mayor?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't need a coup.
We don't need an election every month because somebody comes on there to try to unseat the chairman and put somebody else on there. I don't agree with that.
Brian has to say that.
But based on what Nathan said, this was done when the board was formed. So it makes sense to me that it's only if the chairman vacates his office, you need to turn around and vote to replace him in the next meeting. And not just because a new member is put. That's the way I would.
Okay. Supported. I'm happy with that.
All right. With that, we will ask anybody from the floor got anything to add to this? Come up now.
Hello, Patty Allen, 265 West Shannon Drive. As someone who has been rather engaged in the planning board process for the last 6 months and who has an application in to be a member of the planning board, I would like to suggest that the planning board meet more than 2 weeks prior to a city council meeting, perhaps the week following city council, because for those of us who are trying to serve our communities and we don't necessarily have the expertise in that area, we should have ample time to do our own research and to come prepared, not just as a planning board member, but as an active citizen in the community. A 2-week turnover, as I'm sure y'all know, having just voted on a plan without a plan, is very challenging when you're working a job, when you're doing your volunteer responsibilities, when you're taking care of a family, and then you're having to seek outside counsel to help you understand what's going on during Graham's very significant growth right now. So I would like the city council to request that the planning board consider moving their meetings to either a day other than a Tuesday, obviously, following the city council, or in the week after the city council, so that the citizens at least gain an extra week in preparing for these meetings. Because part of what flusters us is that while we don't doubt the staff is fantastic, and I have certainly built a wonderful rapport with the staff, we still like to check our own facts, because we are intelligent human beings making wise choices.
Say where you at.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let me ask you what you think about that, Chip.
Might be a good idea. You got a point.
I mean, I feel rushed to do my due diligence, and I like, obviously, to be informed. And sometimes when you're calling other places to get information to be able to respond or make decisions, that takes time to get that, for those people to get back to you. And so I kind of agree. To me, I think we need to have more notice. I brought this up at the last meeting, and I think we need to, in my opinion, have a written policy about notice, about making sure that we have enough time to be able to prepare and make the best decisions we can make.
Melanie, what's your thoughts?
I understand what you're saying. Keep in mind that we have a very short limit. That board, however, does their job in that period of time, and they know what their job is and what their role is, and how much time they have to develop, just like we do. We got this Thursday. We get to make these decisions.
I'd like to
Tuesday.
state, though, that at the last at least 2, if not 3, I believe it's been 3 planning board meetings, only 3 of 2 members were even there. And that's an issue that adds to it.
Thank you. And I appreciate that fact. I can't say any more to that issue right this minute.
I'm sorry, to only 4 of the 6. Are there 5 or 6? I'm losing my mind now. There's so many numbers in my head. There's 6. 4 of this. There's 7. There have been multiple absences to where it was barely a majority.
They'd have to have 4.
I've got a lot of numbers in my head trying to keep up with it all.
Nikki, what do you think?
Well, the last meeting, planning board meeting, I sat there myself, and they had all but 2 people. Ash was out sick, and the other gentleman, or the other lady, they said she was out sick.
Not really. We're not taking a.
But it's not about who's present. It's about having more time, because if you want me to be active as a citizen, then you've got to give me the time
Think about
to
sending this
participate.
back to the planning and zoning board and have them look at all the dates again. I mean, this is not mandatory. They would
Of
would
course.
meet in the direct time they're supposed to meet right now if we send this back.
Of course.
Is it the reason we're moving this to meet state guidelines?
So under the current guidelines, we're required to notice for your meeting. We are not required to notice for the planning board meeting. And so we use the notice for the city council meeting to notice for both. But there is a line in there that says, notice shall occur not more than 25, but not less than 10 days before the city council's meeting. So if it becomes that the planning board meets on the 3rd week of the month, then it works for February because February doesn't have enough days in it. But every other month this year, I don't know about every other, the majority of the months this year, people will not receive a mailed notice of the planning board's meeting until after the planning board has met.
That is correct. That can happen.
Mayor, I agree that just send it back to the planning board with this information and see what they come up with.
I think we have a consensus to do that. Let's do that. We got 3 consensus. Thank you for your information. Let me have the date again. You want to meet 1 week after?
I think
the
it would be
council.
wise for when, having observed this and multiple other developments, I mean, y'all have covered a lot of developments in 6 months, a tremendous amount of growth inside and outside of Graham. And it would be helpful, in my opinion, if the period before it comes back to y'all, where y'all are making the final decisions, because planning board is simply recommending that there is more time for preparation. I understand that shortens the time for revision between the board, the city council meeting and the planning board, but that's clearly not an issue because we're passing subdivision plans without revisions evident to them anyway. So the bigger issue is that if something is in planning board, you have as most time possible to prepare for that city council meeting where the legislative action takes place.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
What do we do? Do we need to vote on this or just a consensus take care of it?
May I propose an alternate solution? It may be that it's appropriate for us to raise the fee for a rezoning and provide 2 notices to the adjacent neighbors during this time. So that they would receive a notice that said, the planning board will happen on this day, the city council meeting will happen on this day. And so they received 2 notices that was I don't believe we can put the notice on the site until 25 days prior to the meeting. But I'll look into that. I know for a fact that it has to run in the newspaper. So there won't be a newspaper running of the planning board, but the neighbors would receive a mailed paper copy of notice in the mail. But we currently, the last text memo we ran in the Alamance News was $140, and our cost to apply for a rezoning is $100. So we're not currently covering our own fees, just advertising with the Alamance News, much less paper mailing and all that stuff.
Sounds like the Alamance News is too high, doesn't it? Just a thought. Okay, you bring that information to the planning board. They will meet next month at the regular time, and they will have this to consider again.
This month at the regular time?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, not related to the Alamance News, but if I'm not mistaken, the discussion at the planning board was generally that they at first wanted to keep the 3rd Tuesday was the original discussion. If I'm not mistaken, they largely changed it because of the explanation Nathan gave originally about the 25 and 10-day notice difference.
And they might come back with the same date again.
Okay.
If they do, we'll look at it and vote on it. Okay? And a consensus will work for that, Brian?
You don't need to vote on those ordinance change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I make a motion that we send this back to the planning board with our recommendations, with the recommendations that Nathan had also put forth, and let them come back to us with a updated
I
text.
think what the Bob and them are saying is we got to go to page 87 and either vote this up or vote this down, and then we can make that recommendation. See what I'm saying?
It's really a 2-part thing. You can adopt, in other words, the meeting change is different from the member, voting. You can adopt part of it, or you can send it all back and come back one time and vote it at that time. And that probably would be preferable, just sort of remand it back and bring it back to the council with a hearing and adopt it at one time.
Okay. Fine, it's page 87, is that right? I move that we,
There's a motion on the floor.
no, he didn't make a motion.
I did make a
Well, he was trying, we've got to handle this first, I think. Well, make your motion. That's fine.
Mr. Hall could withdraw his motion if he's inclined to do so, or you could vote on that motion, however the council wishes.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Well, no, if it's how we wish to proceed, I'm fine with Ricky's motion. Okay, go ahead and say it again.
I make a motion that we send this back to the planning board with our comments and with Nathan's amendments to what they put forth, and for them to revise it and send it back to us.
Okay, I got a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Thank y'all. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Thank you. All right, next we got boards and commissions. We've got one opening on the Appearance Commission, and we've got 4 applicants. Sarah Barham, William Copeland, Stephanie Ruiz, and Cheryl Ray. Is anybody here? Y'all want to say something? I've heard you before,
William Copeland's here.
Mr. Copeland. Does anybody want to speak on this before we? Come on up, man. No, you have to stand up here because it is recorded.
Well, my name is Stephanie. I think I'm more qualified for the position because I'm already doing so for the Burlington's Appearance Commission, but as a volunteer. I've helped promote and plan some of their events, and I've also continued to do so. I would like to continue to do so for the city. For the past 4 weeks, I've also helped local businesses, bringing them new clientele with my Mystic Book Club. And so I do know that I have the potential to motivate others, and I'd like to continue to do so for Graham.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your time. Just give us your name and address, please.
My name is Sarah Barham. I live at 112 Mallard Creek Drive. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'm a native of Alamance County, lived here my whole life, raised in Mebane, and I've lived in Graham now for going on 7 years. I love this community, and I want to do whatever I can to help serve the people of this town, and I feel like I have the skills and talents that would be great use to the committee.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Copeland, you want to speak? Good to see you, sir.
Okay, my name is William Copeland. And only thing I can say is I'm honored to be recommended for this board.
Thank you, sir. All right. What does everybody think?
I'd like to make I appreciate Sarah willing to serve. Stephanie, are you a resident of Graham? Okay, you said you serve on the appearance board for Burlington, though? But you live in the city limits of Graham?
Lives in the Oneida Mill.
Oh, okay. It just threw me when you said you were on the, I got the impression you were on the Burlington board. Well, I had talked to William. I guess I thought Sarah was outside of the city limits from the last conversation. I talked to Cheryl, and Stephanie, you already serve on the tree board, is that right? I'd like to recommend William Copeland. I had already talked to him about that, but I so much appreciate y'all willing to serve. William has previously been on the board for a long time, and I've felt like he's done a very good job and is very unbiased, and I have appreciated him being on the board.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second her motion.
Anybody else?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Let
ma'am.
me make a point. Mr. Copeland, do you currently serve on the Historic Resources Commission? That is correct. Thank you. So to your point, he already does serve on the HRC. Mr. Mayor, I would like to recommend Stephanie Ruiz for this position.
Need a second?
Oh, wait a minute. Are you saying that he can't serve?
No, I'm not. You just made a point to say that Stephanie shouldn't serve on this board because she's on the tree board.
No.
Mr. Copeland is on the HRC.
I don't think that's.
That's not what I was saying at all.
Okay.
She just wanted to know that she was on that board.
Right.
But we already have a motion and a second.
Got from Mr. Copeland. Have we got any more nominations? And Stephanie Ruiz was nominated, and I will second that. So now we got to choose between any other motions. I'm sorry. So all in favor of Mr. Copeland?
Aye.
All in favor of Ms. Ruiz?
Aye.
Louise will win that 3-2. And thank you for your interest, sir. And thank you, ma'am. The next, we have the tree board. We have one vacancy. It expires in 2022. We have Jada Fox and Beverly Scurry. Does anybody here? Jada here? Come up, ma'am. If you want to. Yeah, you don't have to. Okay.
Do we know who she is?
I think this is Jada Fox, aren't you?
Jada Fox?
And Ms. Scurry? Not here. Okay. So what does everybody think about this?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that Jada Fox be appointed to the tree board.
A second?
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks, sir. Any other nominations? I ask for the vote. All in favor of Jada Fox, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it. All right, next we have issues not on tonight's agenda. Frankie, let's start with you.
Nothing, except for look out for the census and a lot of information coming your way.
Jennifer.
Me or down there? Usually you start there.
I know, I'll start this way this time.
Okay.
Well, I tricked you, didn't I?
You're messing me up there. Okay, we have EDS already from the last meeting on coming up. And I'd like to talk about the trash. Well, let me just start with that bike lane. The bike lane.
We can leave that one alone. That's been resolved. It's going to be changed.
Here, it's not resolved.
It's going to be changed. They've already sent the contract out, so we can go with your next one.
It's like July. It's not going to be fixed until July.
No. As soon as the weather allows.
I totally disagree with this. I hope that, I mean, what can we do to get it done sooner before someone gets in an accident? If it wasn't dealing with safety, I would say fine. If it was just, you know, a bike lane and people weren't complaining every day about, I almost got, you know, in a wreck there. But I think we need to move faster when it deals with safety. Is there not, at the last council meeting on January 14th, you said you gave the city manager a week, and if not, then we would go fix it ourselves.
And I was advised if we did that, that I would be liable for every wreck on that street, and you would too. So I was not willing to take that little
Mayor,
on.
the weather will probably be broken by May. Is there any way we can move that up to May?
I think I talked to him. Go back to Frankie. I think I talked to him.
Okay,
It's not something our crews can do.
right, I understand. That's thermoplastic. I understand.
Do we not have a,
That's thermoplastic. That's thermoplastic, and you just can't do it. And it's got to be warm weather, so.
I mean, Jerry, in regard to the liability, I would say that the longer you wait, the more liability you have.
Frankie, is it possible they can get to it before July?
We've authorized them to go eat.
Okay, right, we did.
And we're at the first contract.
What else we got, Jennifer?
Is there any way you can set up something to help I mean, if you had a road caved in, you can't wait 2 months to fix it. We've got to do something to fix that safety issue. And it needs to be fixed sooner than July.
It will be. I'm sure they'll get to it. But they did tell us if we did anything on our own, that we would be liable for it.
Would you please elaborate on that, Mr. Mayor? I don't, who told you what?
These guys right here are telling me if I go out there and paint the stripe and cover it up, I'm not bonded or I'm not an official painter for that kind of thing.
But you would be a legend.
Yeah, well, I might be a legend anyway.
What aspect of it is what's the council liable? I don't understand.
Not the council. If I went out there on my own,
No, because I
With
understood the
paint from the hardware store.
was that if DOT didn't do it within a certain time period, you had authorized the city staff to have it done.
they're doing what they can do. They're getting the thing fixed. It's just taking time.
Respond to that. Tom, that is what you call thermoplastic. It's got to be heated and put down, and it takes warm weather to do it. So the city, we're not, I don't want to say capable, but we don't have that equipment. Yes, sir.
It
Thank
looks
you.
like paint though for
Well,
the.
it does look like, but it's thermoplastic.
We did investigate purchasing the equipment and training.
It's expensive.
It's expensive.
We can't hire a contractor to go out there and do that,
We have hired one.
and they can't do it sooner than July.
I don't know where July came from, honestly. We've authorized them to start whenever they are
Well, the
available.
email from Mike Mills said July.
That's a different intersection.
That's 54 and Elm
Oh,
Street.
okay. So when,
Weather permitting and their schedule allows, we've authorized them to proceed.
all right.
We do too, sir. And please do not, if you want to talk, come up to the podium. It'll be just a minute. We're going to go through these and I'll call you up there, okay?
The only reason I'm here for that is because my wife was sitting there waiting to turn left in that lane, and guess what happened? Someone came to the other lane and was going straight. Now they almost hit her.
We know
She
it's
was
a
sitting there
problem.
waiting to turn.
We
She
know
was
it's a
doing what she's
problem. We're
supposed
trying to take care of it.
All right, but all I ask for is if you would please do your due diligence. I agree with her, and along everybody else in this city, it's a safety factor. Thank you very much.
And
sir.
they know that.
We need to move faster though. You can't let the house burn down and then send the firemen. I mean, we're just waiting for an accident to happen and I don't like that. And I don't agree with it. But understand, I'm one person and I mean, I'm happy to make a motion to take a vote that we hire somebody outside and get it done
That's
within the
what we've
next.
already done.
We already
Okay,
have. We've re-engineered it. It's been,
we have to move
Really?
faster. It's a life safety issue and I just think that we should move faster than what it's moving. The other issue is EDS, which is on for next month and on the agenda for extra duty solutions, police officers. And in regards to that, I'd like to see if we could get some of the people that put on events to come to talk about EDS and maybe also have the police chief here or somebody that could talk some on it so that we could talk about that. Trash pickup, I want to ask Paul Krotz to come up and talk about his trash pickup and the issue that he's having. Paul, do you have a minute?
He signed up. Hey, Bob.
Mayor, it's good to see you back at the helm.
Paul, let me have your name and address.
I'm Paul Krotz. I live in Snow Camp, but I also reside at Grand Furniture during the week. It started back the 8th month of 19. I get a water bill, and the water bill has a surplus garbage charge. The first was $408. The second was $168 because I called up and I asked, what is surplus garbage? I do have cardboard, which I pay a man to pick up per month, and used furniture I take away from the consumer's house as a courtesy. And most furniture stores in Burlington and Mebane that I've talked to do not carry off used furniture. What they do is carry it to the street. Now I can instruct my men to do that, but that's going to curtail the expense of the city of Graham picking up used sofas, used mattresses, used box springs, recliners, so forth, so on. But as a courtesy, I bring it back and put it behind the store. And depending on how much it is, I spend between $300 to $375 a month to have an individual to carry my cardboard off and my used furniture off. But in unwrapping furniture, I have styrofoam. And I have chunks of styrofoam that are put on corners of furniture where they don't get damaged in shipment. I take a mattress bag and I fill up that mattress bag completely full. And I have watched it since day one of this bill. I normally have 2 or 3 bags of styrofoam. I talked to Greg Thomas yesterday that used to be the landfill. I said, Greg, could it not be that this could be recycled? He said it could be. But anyway, it's not being recycled. But the city is saying that it's surplus garbage. It fills their garbage truck up. I have to disagree there. When that compactor, and I've watched it, takes one of those bags and puts it in there, it's crushed, and that styrofoam completely flattens out. I don't agree with it not being recycled because, like Greg Thomas told me yesterday, it doesn't deteriorate. I know it's not the city council's problem, but he's asked me to go before the county commissioners and ask that the county commissioners set up some type of recycling system for this styrofoam, also for mattress and box springs. Instead of putting them in landfill, they can recycle the springs, the foam, the netting, the wood, so forth. And a lot of other states are doing that. But what I'm asking is this fee not be charged. I paid this past year $3,716 to the city for just Graham Furniture in taxes, plus my sales tax per year. I know you get a percentage of that. And I can't see $408. Now, this past month in January, I was charged $60. But then I get a bill 2 days ago and it's back up to $96. So I just, there's no consistencies. And I watch it pretty, I ride a tight rein and expenses, because expenses can put you out of business. But I can't see the consistencies from $408 down to $168, down to $60, back up to $60. Last Thursday, when they picked up the trash, there was one bag out there. And I can tell you, I've had as many as 5 bags out there at one time and all, but I had a councilman in my store today, and I showed him what I was talking about. I've had an ex-councilman in my store, and I showed him. It does not weigh anything. It does crush up. It's not like throwing a sofa in the back of a trash truck and trying to crush it up, or a box spring and mattress. This is styrofoam. And I would ask the city council to consider abolishing this surplus garbage fee.
Let me go to Frankie. Is that figured by weight or volume? What is
Volume.
it? Volume?
Yeah.
Where's in the fee schedule surplus trash fee?
It's a fee that's been in place for quite some time. I think the difference that you're seeing recently is it used to be billed independent of your water bill. But for efficiency's sake, we now have the ability to put it on the water bill, so it's one mailing.
Have you ever gotten a charge?
Yeah, I've been in Graham Furniture for 55 years. Store's been there 74 years. And I've never seen a bill, whether it be in the water bill or a separate bill. I've never heard of such a,
And that's what I would argue to the council, is that this council is charged with the responsibility of setting fees, and that our staff are not supposed to be arbitrarily setting fees, and that if there's a fee that's going to be added to someone's bill as a new fee, that they need to be notified. When I was not elected and I came to council, I think a couple of months before the election, I was quite upset because the water rates on the fee schedule here previously last year, and I asked you, Jerry, and I asked Chip, I said, did you know that the water rate fees for the downtown trash pickup here for the trash, for the recycling and the trash fees had gone up substantially? And what I mean is that I pay, just my particular business, I have a downtown business, and I can speak to this because I know firsthand about it. For a trash can that we have, we're now paying 700% more than what we were paying, before. And you didn't know anything about it, and Chip didn't know anything about
Actually,
it.
I did. I went up there and walked around with Chuck and Bert.
No. Did you know that when you pass this, that it was changed, the wording was changed in the rate from $236 per month, which is a trip fee to go out and take your trash up or take up your recycling, to now it's $236 per unit per month.
I remember that.
Right, exactly. Well, I'm just telling you, for every business in the downtown that had multiple trash cans, their bill went up exponentially, not a little bit. It didn't go by 100%. It went up 700% or 600% or 500%. And now there's these extra trash
Let's get away
pickup
from
fees.
your trash. Let's go back and concentrate on Paul.
I'm just saying, these are, I don't care about my trash. I'm not complaining specifically about my trash. I just have knowledge of it. I'm saying other people are complaining. The Verdict complained, Skids complained, numerous downtown businesses complained, saying we didn't get any notice of this, that these fees changed. And somebody was arguing, this is taxation without representation, because clearly the council didn't even know that this was changed. And shouldn't we know when we're going to raise somebody's water bill that they get every single month for recycling or trash by 700%? I think we should know that. And when a resident comes to me as a council member and advocates his position about his trash, this trash fee, and I look through this entire schedule and it's not in here, I'm like, show me where it says excessive trash fee. Bulk waste?
It's been in the policy for a long time.
That bulk waste is like when someone comes and picks up tree limbs and things like that at your house, because it's per shell bite with a piece of equipment. This is not we have never in the entire time in the downtown ever charged businesses a fee for having more trash than normal. Never. Can you admit to, have we ever charged that? Is this something new?
I know we have a better ability to bill for it now.
Have you ever charged a downtown business before this past fall for excessive trash?
I'd have to go look, Jennifer.
Oh my gosh.
Paul,
I don't
look at it and see what
You do know.
But there were,
Okay, thank you.
I think we're talking about two different waste streams. We're talking about bulk waste and we're talking about containerized collection. What precipitated the containerized collection is we had complaints from individuals who felt that they were paying for containers that they were not using. So we audited the containers and figured out, yes, some businesses were paying for X number of containers, and they asked us to remove those containers, to take them off their bill. So we did. So those businesses, we attributed the containers that went to the business. We charged those folks for those containers, and those folks that were being charged but shouldn't have been charged, We corrected that. So some folks, their charges went down. So it was allocating the cost consistent with the number of containers that an individual business had. It's up to the individual business whether or not they want one container or multiple containers. We can remove containers if that's what the business wants. That's fine. We do that upon request.
I don't think that answers the question about this. If this compacts, I see he's got a pretty good.
Our fee schedule is based on volume. It's not based on weight because we have no way to weigh it at the curb. So it's always been.
The point is, there has never been a charge when a trash truck goes to pick up trash in the downtown area. There has never been an excessive trash charge, and you as a city manager has gone out and on your own decided to do this and start charging this to the downtown businesses without the city council's approval. End of story. That is that is what happened, and that is what's happening. And in the past, the trash cans have always been shared. They're shared in Mebane, they were shared in Graham. They were never assigned to a specific business. And for years and years and years, those trash cans were all put together behind local businesses, and they were shared by all those businesses.
Weren't shared. The corner bar had 7.
Yes, they were shared.
They were shared, but the corner bar was paying for them.
This was simply
That's a billing error. That has nothing to
it's
do
not
with
a billing error.
Jerry. Yes, it does.
No.
Jerry, I promise
I
you.
can assure you this was a response to complaints from businesses. They were complaining because so-and-so is using my container. I'm being billed for too many. That is why we audited the containers. That's what happened. I didn't audit them. Our public works staff audited them.
But
Our
when the
sanitation
verdict
department
complained, all of a sudden they were billed for a container that they weren't billed before because the corner bar was paying for the container.
I'm telling you that in the rate schedule that the city council set back in July, no word or utterance was made that you were charging the downtown residents, and it was going to change for those businesses from a trip fee, which was X number of dollars a month, to a per unit fee. And I'm telling you, I know for a fact from multiple businesses that these trash cans downtown have always been shared.
They've been shared illegally.
That's not
Somebody's
true.
paying
Call
for them,
Mebane.
Jennifer.
Call Mebane.
I'm not in Mebane. I want to go down there.
I'm just saying they do the exact same thing. They put trash cans
Are
downtown.
being paid for. They're being paid for. The corner bar had 7 of them that they were paying for. And when we notified, do you need 7 cans? He said, no, I need 2. So they took the 5 cans away. The verdict comes up there and looks, they don't have a can. So they have to pay for a can.
The verdict did have a can. They did have a trash can.
They
and
had a
were
trash
being-
can that was being paid by the corner bar.
No, they didn't. They had a trash can behind their.
All right,
Jerry,
so-
I own the building. I think I know. They have a trash can. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do they not have a trash can behind the Court Square Florist? That is
There are several back there.
exactly. And how are you going to justify sending an excessive trash fee to a downtown business and send them a bill for $400 and some when an 8-yard container, an 8-yard container is $55. A brand new 8-yard container is $55 a month, but you're going to send them a bill for $400 or $500
So I
for
think what I'm
something that.
hearing is the fee schedule should be segregated to identify downtown versus non-downtown.
No. All I'm saying is that what my point about changing the per unit is that these people sitting up here should know. These people should have a right to be able to decide, and I think that it should be advertised if you're going to now change it from a per trip charge to a per unit charge. I'm not complaining about what I'm paying.
We were never charging a per trip charge because we service downtown twice a week and we only service the rest of the city once a
Okay,
week.
there is someone that when you went to council, that changed in writing from per month to per unit per month. So if it wasn't your intent to do it, how did those words get in there?
All right, let's end this right here.
I'm following your question.
And I'm going to ask
In the
this.
fee schedule,
All right,
it
let's
did
end it
say
right
per
here. Hold it,
unit.
hold it, hold it. I'll ask the staff to look into this and a report back for us next month. Let's look at not only the fee schedule, but also the bulk rate that we're charging Paul, because that's too high. It ain't no doubt about that. So let's do that. Yes, Paul, come on up, please.
The last thing I say, I can't think of the gentleman's name. He's a heck of a nice guy. He used to work for Grand Tractor.
Danny McMasters.
No.
That works for us?
Yes.
Bert Roberts.
Burke.
Oh, yeah.
I think y'all spoken many times.
Oh, we spoke to him many times, and I told him my concerns. And he said, I understand.
Paul, if I can interrupt, I think this speaks to a larger issue. For many, many years, the activity in downtown was not as intense and was not as much. Now, and a residential container and a residential application worked when we had less activity. Now we're seeing more activity and more intense activity.
Isn't that a good thing?
It is a great thing.
That means they're paying more taxes
That's
to have your trash picked up.
That's a great thing. But it speaks to how do you address. This is not
Well, here's what
problem that's
here's
unique
what
to Graham.
Burke talked to me. Just a conversation between behind the store. He understood that if I didn't pick up the furniture, I would take it to the street of Graham, and it's y'all's responsibility. He said, quote, that's going to cost us. I said, I do it as a courtesy to my customers. I bring it back. If the furniture is resellable, I give it to Living Free Ministry, which is a Christian-based organization. It doesn't go to the landfill, very, very little bit. But Burke told me that Graham was considering getting a compressor.
We are
4 of
evaluating
them.
multiple options.
4 of them. And put them in 4 areas of downtown.
We're looking at all kinds of options. Paul.
Where I could take that styrofoam and put it into there, and it'd be compressed, and when you reach a certain amount, somebody from Greensboro comes, gets it, and takes it. Once again, I know it's not your responsibility for recycling, but I'll throw it into the county commissioner's lap. Styrofoam going into a landfill is not biodegradable. It's not going to, it's not good as a mattress and box spring going in a landfill. It's not going to stop. I get countless magazines that say that states are recycling, and it's a multi-million-dollar operation per year. Or our county commissioners behind time.
Oh, give us a chance to look at it this coming.
Okay, well, I'd appreciate it.
And I'll see what we can do, okay?
Jerry,
Thank
I
you,
very
sir.
much appreciate that. I mean, we just want to be fair.
Business friendly and fair.
The
You're exactly right.
time to find out that your $400 bill is not getting it on a water bill. Thank you.
That it?
Yep, that's it.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I have one thing that I'd like to bring forth. Residents along Greenview Drive on both sides, on both sides of Greenview Drive. It's split by Pepperstone. Have come forth asking me to ask the city to do a traffic study or whatever is necessary to look at turning that intersection into a 4-way stop.
I'll ask staff to look at that. Is the chief still here?
Yeah.
Okay, let's ask staff to have the chief look into that. I think it's
I'll
well.
talk to Nathan about it. He may have more information.
Because the council amended the traffic schedule tonight, if you wanted to add that one in, you are welcome to do so. And then Councilmember Hall, you also mentioned potentially Chartwell and the northern part of Covington Loop.
Yes, sir.
Did you go 4-way drive? I'd rather have the police chief look at it first.
Absolutely, but we could, if you were interested, we could put it in the minutes for this one, and then the council could approve it or not at your next meeting.
Yeah, we still need to make a motion on number 4. Which one was that? You told me to bring it up in issues, not on the agenda.
There was the meeting, planning board meeting time.
Okay.
Always charge the unit.
Anything else, Rick? Four-way stuff. Now, both of those are Pepperstone and what?
One is
Darcy Road.
Pepperstone and Greenview.
Me, probably.
One is Pepperstone and Covington Loop, and one is Pepperstone at Chartwell Lane.
Okay.
We're looking at a 3-way, a 4-way, and another 4-way.
Okay. All right. Well, Melody, is that it? I'm sorry. Is that all? Melody, you got anything?
On Monday, the 17th, the Historical Museum will have an open house in conjunction with the public school system. That will be at the museum at 6:30 p.m. on next Monday, the 17th.
Thank you, ma'am. Darcy, you got anything?
Yes, sir.
Brian?
February 11th.
Okay, the open, we need to set the time for that rezoning for the reserve on 54. We left it open, so February 11th. February, what you said?
I'm sorry,
March.
February 18th. The planning board will discuss the tabled item on there at their February 18th meeting.
Did we not move it to our next meeting?
So this was the one that was tabled by the planning board. So it'll be heard by your next meeting, but this will give the planning board the opportunity to discuss it, to send it to you for the second time. But this was the one that we wanted to come back to because we weren't sure what date the planning board would be on. Y'all decided to leave it at the third Tuesday right now. So we're just re-advertising the public hearing for that as February 18th for the planning board. And then I believe it's March 11th for the city council.
Need a motion on that, or do we? Okay.
But Mr. Mayor, if I understood right, the motion that was made earlier stated that the whole thing was postponed until the planning board acted.
It is.
Understood. Mr. Hall's motion earlier. So what is this motion?
We have to have a public hearing for it ourselves, so we will have to vote on it and then advertise it as a public hearing after the planning board looks at it. So that's what we're doing. We're just crossing our T's and dotting our I's. So I do need that as a motion. I will make the motion that we look at number A on our recommended planning and zoning board after they do it on March 11th.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. So we will look at that on March 11th.
It's March 10th.
Thank you.
Hey, I will redo my motion and say March the 10th.
And I will second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed likewise. Okay. Aaron, have you got anything?
No, sir.
Nathan?
No, sir.
Bob? Mary?
Mayor, council, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we have a new business that opened yesterday. I hope that you'll stop by C&Z Grill. And earlier in the month, we had the Muse that opened. So we have some new businesses downtown. And if you haven't had a chance, I hope that you'll stop in there.
What is the Muse exactly?
It is an ideal of consignment meets fashion. And so the owner really wants to get to know her clients and have this opportunity to design whenever outfits come in. So it's a little more than just going and buying it off the rack and walking out, but it is retail.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Did anybody sign up to speak? Ladies and gentlemen, we're having a get-together for our new council people and our retired councilman that left us. We couldn't do it in January because we were just so booked. We stayed up till 10 o'clock that night. We're going to be over at Captain White House. Everybody's invited, and I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Your wife not here?
She's over there.
Okay.
End meeting.
Yeah, trying to get the mouse to work.